everybody to our monthly Firewise workshop. This month's workshop in March is going to be hosted by me, Evie Vermeer, Wildfire Planning Specialist for Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council. Just as a reminder, we host these Firewise workshops monthly, as I mentioned. The Ventura Regional Fire Safe Council, as a nonprofit, makes it our mission to mobilize residents to protect their homes, their communities, and the environment from catastrophic wildfire. So we have these workshops every month on the third Friday of the month at 1. So be sure to mark your calendars and register for those going forward. Today, we're going to do a presentation on CWPPs, or Community Wildfire Protection Plans, as they're called. I'm going to go into more detail on those momentarily, but we're currently in the closing phase of publishing the City of Ventura's CWPP. So we have some information on that and helpful context that I think would be good for all of your community's awareness. Then we'll also go over the existing community wildfire protection plans that are already developed for all of the county and communities within it. And we have those in various stages of development, so I'll touch on them too. But first, I wanted to kind of give a more comprehensive introduction. My name is Evie Vermeer. I'm the Wildfire Planning Specialist with VRFSC, as I mentioned. My background comes from forestry. I actually had a background originally in finance and forest management, and I went to UCSB's Bren School for my master's in environmental science and management to do conservation planning there. And it's at UCSB where I got into prescribed fire, forest management for wildfire mitigation, did some fellowships with the National Forest Foundation and other organizations to kind of start my foray into this world. So that's a bit of background on me. And as I mentioned now, I do a lot of the wildfire planning, technical documentation, and associated work for the Fire Safe Council now. Also with us today is Sarah Rodriguez, our operations coordinator. Just wanted to also highlight that she's on this call along with Natasha, our Firewise coordinator too. So as I mentioned, today's agenda is going to be talking about CWPPs, Community Wildfire Protection Plans. First, I'll go through some of our upcoming events and resources, do a little bit more of that admin information. Then I'll go into the contents of the city's CWPP, the City of Ventura's draft that we're currently preparing and that is close to being completed. We're going to provide some context about that document and how you may approach it for your own utility if you haven't yet. And additionally, if you're not, in the City of Ventura's region or that area, we'll provide resources and updates to other locally relevant plans that you can also go through. So we'll touch on what a CWPP is, why it's necessary, and the authoring process at a very high level, and then get into some detail that I think will help, you kind of review what's locally relevant and also give you an idea of how you can contribute to CWPPs. So at the end, we'll have this project activity. We want you to give your ideas for future CWPP projects. I'll go into more detail about what that would entail, but that's going to be an opportunity for us all to kind of have an open discussion, log our ideas, and then have those considered for future relevant plans to your area. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to hear your ideas after I go through this brief presentation. Just to go over kind of some of our upcoming events on the calendar, we've got a whole host of 2026 chipper events lined up throughout Ventura County over the next 3 months or so. You can learn more on our website at venturafiresafe.org/chipper, but starting with the drop-off event on April 18th in Fillmore, we're picking up some of our Chipper Day season here. And so we'd love to see folks out and about, either for the curbside pickup or drop-off events. And we encourage you to get involved with that. We also have an upcoming workshop in Calabasas, not us, but our partners with the Santa Monica Mountains Fire Safe Council are helping put on a training in Calabasas about the gold-spotted oak borer. The gold-spotted oak borer, for those of you who haven't heard of it, is a invasive pest. It is responsible for a pretty large and widespread oak mortality throughout Southern California. It's been slowly moving its way up from the San Diego area over the last couple of years, and it's now been detected in Ventura County. So we have this upcoming event in Calabasas that we can link the registration to for you all, but that is going to teach you a lot about how to detect gold-spotted oak borer, which is an important first step in making sure that we prevent its widespread effects throughout the county of Ventura. After gold-spotted oak borer has its way with oaks, we see a lot of dead, dry, standing timber, which similar to the beetle kill in the Sierra that we saw a decade plus ago, can really increase the effects of wildfire once it gets into dry, standing, dead trees. So the oak borer is kind of top of mind right now for us, for the Resource Conservation District, for the Santa Monica Mountains Fire Safe Council, and we want folks to learn as much about that as possible. So resources are linked in the chat, I believe, from Sarah, but as you learn more about it, we're hoping that folks can be community scientists in helping prevent the spread of this invasive insect. Next here, we have our free programs and resources that we wanted to just provide to folks one more time. Obviously, one of our bigger programs we provide are the home wildfire assessments here. You can sign up for those for free on our website, venturafiresafe.org. We also have a couple different resources here, both from the Santa Monica Mountain Fund, as well as the Malibu LA County Department of Forestry and Fire Unit that helps folks get basically pollinators that are native and plants that are more fire-wise for fire-escaped landscapes. So those two resources are linked there as well. And then lastly, we wanted to just provide another link to Ventura County Fire's standards and guidelines page. They're continually updating this with new guidelines as they come down the pipe, either from CAL FIRE, the Department of Forestry, whomever. And they have a new standard 515 for local landscaping requirements that I would encourage folks to read as well. It has all the fire department's language about local landscaping and ways to prevent the spread of fire within your property lines. So with that, we are now ready to kind of hop into my actual presentation, and apologies again, folks, for not having my screen shared before, but now these are kind of some of the more important slides, so we'll jump into that. So Community Wildfire Protection Plans, or CWPPs as they're called for short, are community-based documents. They're prepared for communities really of all scales. So I wanted to mention again that the County of Ventura has a CWPP for its entire area. So does the Ojai Valley, and so does the small unincorporated community of Piru as well. So they can really fit communities of several scales. But what a CWPP is meant to do is complement and integrate itself with other local fire plans. So there's local hazard mitigation plans, county safety elements, unit fire plans, etc. And a CWPP is not meant to recreate or substitute itself for any of these plans. Rather, it integrates them, aggregates their information, and then focuses on the community. A CWPP is developed with the community in mind, so collaboration and community feedback are necessary and required components of any CWPP drafting process, which is why I wanted to include you all in this process here today. But lastly, a CWPP includes a list of projects and priorities to mitigate wildfire hazard. And the reason I mention that is because a CWPP is really a crucial vehicle that serves as a funding attractor from CAL FIRE and other agencies to help mitigate wildfire hazard in the area. So not only does it give attention to certain priorities or initiatives that are occurring within that planning area, but it also gives basically a vetted thumbs up that these projects are not only approved by local agencies, but they've been brought to the community for their feedback. That feedback has been considered, integrated, and this represents much more than just the local fire district's wishes. It reflects the community's wishes as well for management and mitigation actions. So in Ventura, we have a few different CWPPs, as I mentioned. There's the county-wide CWPP, which isn't reflected on this map because that's all of the county, of course. But we also have a map of the other communities here. I will note that the Ojai Valley CWPP planning area is not lit up in the kind of top left of our map there. We're having some integration issues with our ArcGIS online server right now. So it won't show up in yellow there, but we do have one for all of Ojai Valley, which is quite comprehensive. And then you'll see there the list. We've got Bell Canyon, Fillmore, Oak Park, Piru, Rancho Ventura, which is the Atmore Ranch, close to the city, Ventura Land Trust as well, and then Santa Paula. We've translated a good bit of these into Spanish for our Spanish-speaking neighbors. And so we've distributed these pretty far and wide, and work is ongoing, as I mentioned, for the City of Ventura's CWPP, as well as a CWPP for Ventu Park as well. So I wanted to just mention this because we have a bunch of existing CWPP resources, and whether it's one that's local to your area or whether it's the county-wide CWPP, we do have relevant CWPP materials that I think all folks should be encouraged to read. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the cities in specific, not only to kind of give you a background on the process that goes into these planning documents, but also to provide some context on these documents for you all so that you can digest them a little more easily, see where there might be information of note to you and how you can kind of scan them for your own knowledge. Some of these documents are hundreds of pages and they can be quite technical. So instead of telling you to read every word, what I really want to do is give you a roadmap for the best ways to kind of interface with these documents. So the first and most important part of the CWPP is undergoing a risk assessment with local fire authorities, planning out what the needs are from that fire department and responding agency in the face of current risks, right? So the City of Ventura has been doing this for the past few years. It's an ever ongoing project for every fire department, right? But in an effort to attract more funding from CAL FIRE in particular, it was time to get on board with this planning process, create an official document, and also give the community an opportunity to provide its input. So as far as risk assessments go in the beginning of our process with the City of Ventura, we wanted to first kind of summarize some of these high level, why questions. Why are we doing this process? Why does the City of Ventura need a CWPP? And, as far as the risk assessment goes, something we undertook in addition to the fire department, but there's very tangible wildfire risk, right? We I think all know this, and most of this audience does not need a reminder of the Thomas fire, almost 9 years ago, more than 9 years ago. But it was really important to still rehash some of the lessons learned from that event and reflect those in the CWPP. So just to mention a couple, Santa Ana winds are these warm, dry, downslope winds that usually occur late summer, early fall. When those overlap with a fire event, that's when you get really extreme fire behavior, like we saw during the Thomas fire. Thomas fire, I think after action reviews revealed that Santa Ana winds carried firebrands or embers from the fire's front up to 2 miles ahead of where firefighters were positioned to fight that fire. So these hurricane gust winds that were nearly hurricane force, literally, can carry wildfire much beyond its perimeters of where it's contained, but also it can really increase fire activity to the point that you're battling a windstorm as well as a firestorm. Also of note that we wanted to highlight is that there's a bunch of regional barrancas, as they're called, which are these ravines throughout Southern California formed by seasonal streams and rain events. And these barrancas are really densely vegetated, excuse me. These fuels grow during the rainy and wet season. They senesce or die and then lose all their moisture during the summer and then fall. And then super densely vegetated fuels that are fine fuels and receptive to fire fire are concentrated. These ravines also funnel wind, and so the fire behavior in and around Barrancas is really intense and was a huge part of some of the communities that burned during the Thomas Fire. And that's the last note that we also wanted to stress in the CWPP is that as cities continue to build outward throughout all of the United States and the Western United States in particular, we're moving further and further into the WUI, which is the wildland urban interface, as it's called. More and more communities in the WUI are now in very high or high fire hazard severity zones as classified by CAL FIRE. And as we saw really clearly in 2025, down in Malibu, during the Palisades fire, during the Eaton fires in LA County, once these communities that are in the WUI receive, either ember cast or direct flame contact from wildfires, and they start to burn, entire homes, it becomes what's called an urban conflagration. Those urban conflagrations really become a domino effect that far outstrip the behavior of any actual wildfire, right? The fuels in a home are much different than the fuels in a forest. And the domino effect is that your neighbor's home will potentially ignite your home, and the home after it, the home after that. And the response to a normal house fire from a firefighting agency is multiple engines, multiple crews, etc. And when you have a whole neighborhood that is starting to burn, it really has the effect of becoming an incident that is far greater than the capacity of any firefighting agency. And so what any fire department will tell you is that planning measures for wildfires are much more important and much greater in their effect than simply being responsive. And that was a big part of what the City of Ventura wanted us to relay on to folks, not just for their own residents, but around the entire county. The most important work happens long before a fire. And I know I'm probably preaching to the choir a little bit on this. You all are part of Firewise communities. You're being proactive and doing that work before the fire. But I would just like to note that, conclusive research has shown that structural modifications like home hardening to your house can reduce the probability of home ignition from an ember storm up to 40%. And if you combine those home hardening measures with vegetation reduction around your house, then you can reduce your home ignition probability by up to 75%. So the CWPP is really meant to provide guidance on these measures, both vegetation reduction, structural hardening, but also more broad measures that the fire agencies are undertaking themselves. And really, the CWPP is meant to help us act before these conditions, force hard choices, right? We want to be proactive. So to highlight the process of, authoring the CWPP and who we had contributing to it for the city, we started by convening city staff, right? We wanted to assess the current measures that local government is undertaking to mitigate its wildfire risk. Ventura Fire Safe Council took the lead role in both authoring and facilitating this technical advisory group. We had participation from Ventura Fire, Emergency Services, the City Public Works, Communications Office, Parks Department, and more. And using our research along with their information, we summarized current wildfire risks and the fire hazard profile for the city. And this group was also instrumental in, submitting existing projects that are either ongoing or planned for the future to mitigate wildfire risk. But they also were crucial in helping us integrate our plan with other plans, like I mentioned. The Ventura County safety element is a very comprehensive plan that is hundreds and hundreds of pages long, but needed to be distilled to be put into the CWPP. The police department in the city of Ventura has a comprehensive emergency evacuation plan that we had to integrate as well. So we helped basically integrate existing resources into the CWPP so that we weren't recreating the wheel at all for some of these work streams that have already been undertook by several of agencies and government affiliates with the city. So I just wanted to highlight this because having a technical advisory group that is engaged in your CWPP process is a crucial first step, not only to summarize the work that's already ongoing, but to get ideas and sign off on your future plans as well. Another really crucial step in the CWPP process is the community engagement portion. So we dedicated significant resources to creating and distributing a public questionnaire that went out to all city residents if they chose to participate. We also conducted two public workshops, one at City Hall, which is pictured there, and another at the Ventura Fire Department headquarters. And we were looking we were working rather with community members and organizations so that they could voice their concerns, identify their own risks, and provide stakeholder feedback. And all CWPPs require this, and it's a crucial way to drive engagement between agencies and communities. And it was a big part of why the City of Ventura wanted to undergo this process. So in the city CWPP, we summarize the engagement work in much more detail. We have full appendix items that catalog the feedback we received. But I wanted to stress this because this is where the community portion of the Community Wildfire Protection Plan is really important. We used a bunch of ideas from these workshops to incorporate into our plan. And we're in the process right now of kind of finalizing some of that feedback and putting it into the published document that we're authoring so that it reflects the needs and desires of the community, which is most important. So just to give you highlights of the city CWPP, these are also really county relevant highlights too, so I wanted to bring them up. But most importantly, actually, this is the format that all CWPPs kind of follow. And going forward, CAL FIRE has released a toolkit, which I can tell you more about at the end of this, that gives you basically a cut and paste format for the ordering and contents of your CWPP. So beginning with the community overview, that basically is background on the city or your planning area. So this section would have a bulk of the information on your existing hazards, the fire history of the area, the profile of fire risk overall. This is where you'll find the risk assessment that we undertook. It also includes details on local environment, drought patterns over the last kind of relevant piece of history. It's got many more details on Santa Ana winds, including the science of, how they originate in the Great Basin and the high and low pressure systems that help kind of spur their activity. And it also has a bunch of details like existing firefighting resources, CAL FIRE's newly adopted fire hazard severity zones and what that means for property owners. So it's got a bunch of background. And the actually best thing that I think comes from this section, beyond kind of the wildfire science and general knowledge, is that it's got a good deal of information on existing resources for community members, both in and around Ventura. So I want to go over those just very briefly because I think they're some of the most important pieces of the CWPP as far as public awareness goes. And some of you probably know, a good portion, if not most of these. But in the resources of note section, we detail ways that you as community members can increase your situational awareness, if you will. So that includes details on the alert services that VC Emergency and the County Emergency Services Office delivers. It also has background on Watch Duty, which is a wildfire notification app that I would highly recommend. We offer information on the Public Safety Power Shutoff Program from Southern California Edison and resources for those affected by power safety shutoffs who can't afford to have those shutoffs in their home for whatever reason. We discuss the Community Emergency Response Team Training Program, and then we cover a host of free services that VRFSC, our organization, provides, things like the Firewise Community Assistance, free home wildfire assessments, etc. So more information on what you can do as community members to be prepared can be found in that section. And I just wanted to highlight that because that section is really relevant to all community members in and around Ventura County, not just city residents. And then this is where we really get into the kind of the bulk of the CWPP contents. After the existing resources and background, we go into these projects and initiatives sections. So the priorities and initiatives are binned into different categories, and they detail current, ongoing, and future projects to mitigate wildfire risk. The six categories are up on your screen here in the slide deck. We've got first community engagement education. That's things like annual outreach events that we do, but also ways that the fire department educates citizens. We've got structural hardening, which is a section that contains a great deal of information and very specific building recommendations for ways that you can mitigate hazards to your home and reduce your structure's ignitability. We've got the defensible space section, which entails work like brush clearance, for example, around structures near roadways. Defensible space is meant to be very broadly a buffer area that's meant to slow or even stop a fire spread. Fuels treatments means things like removing vegetation from barrancas, for example. An example of a fuel project actually from our countywide CWPP is on the right here on this slide. You can see a before and after photo of a project that was listed in the countywide CWPP, received funding because of its involvement with the CWPP, and now you can see that it's been treated for its fuels. Next, we've got evacuation planning, which contains language from county and city offices of emergency services. And then lastly, there's other mitigation measures, which is kind of just a catch-all for everything else that doesn't fit into those five earlier bins. I wanted to mention this because in the city, specifically around the Thomas fire, there were issues with water supply consistency, and that's something that the community obviously is quite concerned about. We address some of those mitigation measures in this section just because it doesn't fit into others, of course, but also wanted to mention that because that's a concern that we've heard a lot about in the last year plus of authoring this, and we wanted to make sure that that concern was reflected and that there's proactive measures documented that have been already put in place over the last 9 years, but there's more that are happening as well. So in summary, and then I'll wrap up our presentation pretty soon here, the CWPP is really formed by years and years of knowledge and pre-existing work in the community. It is a community-oriented document, and it's meant for you as community members. But at the same time, it also includes agency participation, agency vetted initiatives, and plans, that really serve as a funding magnet for grant opportunities to continue doing fire mitigation work. So in summary, I would say it's a one-stop shop for residents getting to know their local fire hazard, as well as the existing work that's going on and potential resources, which I think is really important. And it's a wildfire planning document that adds a critical piece to the puzzle for your community being prepared and your community's protection. So I wanted to, again, just provide context on these documents because I think it's important that folks are at least familiar with their local CWPPs and they know how to interact with them. And I wanted to, I guess, also provide one brief bit of discussion around Firewise communities and CWPPs, since that's most relevant for this audience. Firewise, you might be asking yourself, is my Firewise community the right community to prepare a CWPP? And the answer I'm going to give you is maybe. I think at a very high level, a larger, well-organized Firewise community could probably undertake a CWPP planning process. But that said, Firewise communities are much more meant to be localized for their own mitigation, right? It's you and your neighbors focusing on ways that you can kind of defend your backyard. A CWPP operates usually at a much broader scale. So if you were to undertake a CWPP process, I would stress that it requires the following things: cross-jurisdictional coordination with your firefighting agencies as well as your local governments. It requires a good deal of technical analysis to do a wildfire assessment, to do mapping, to comply with the CAL FIRE requirements. And it also requires that you align your projects and priorities with those of the agencies. And so that extends typically beyond a single neighborhood, like your Firewise community might be. But I wanted to just kind of mention that because largely, I think a CWPP, while it's a crucial piece of kind of your Firewise puzzle, it might not be a a necessary piece to complete kind of your Firewise work as you're conceptualizing it. So, in summary, CWPPs demand pretty intensive data and modeling, planning resources. And for that reason, I would say Firewise groups are most effective as contributors to a CWPP rather than like a primary entity that leads its development. But that said, if you think a CWPP is right for you or your area, I encourage you to read more about them. On our website, you can definitely receive a lot more information, and then you can reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation with any of you in more detail, either about CWPPs at large or CWPPs that are most relevant for your community. I can help you parse through these documents if you'd like and kind of see what work is ongoing that might be more local. And then we can get that ball rolling and we can discuss that in more detail. So the reason I mentioned all that is because Firewise communities are a really important part of the community engagement and activity portion of CWPP planning. So for the purposes of an activity here today, I wanted us to potentially checking how many folks we have. Looks like 27. So actually, I think what we might do is hop into breakout rooms. And then I want us to put our heads together and think of some relevant project ideas that could go into a CWPP in your area. So what I really am thinking of is if you have an idea, mitigation measures that might be most appropriate for your area, I want you to raise your hand, identify the community that you're from, and if you have a relevant CWPP, whether it's at the county level or one that's more at the community level, and then throw your idea out, whether it's a fuel treatment along a road that you've noticed is near your home and really could use more attention, whether it's feedback for evacuation planning services that county Office of Emergency Services should receive. We kind of want you all to put on your thinking caps and help us incorporate your community feedback into either future updates for a locally relevant CWPP, or if you're in the City of Ventura, ways that we can include your feedback as well. So I think this might take a brief moment here and bear with me. I'm going to drop in very quickly a list of the different project categories, and then we'll put folks into a breakout room. We'll go from there and let you guys take maybe 5 or 10 minutes to discuss in your smaller groups some projects ideas, and then we'll come back as a big group. Maybe if you could have one person that you nominate kind of be the speaker for your group, and then we'll try to reflect as many of your project ideas that you have. Hello, everyone. I hope you all were able to have some productive discussion. We wanted to give folks an opportunity from each breakout room, or if you wanted to just surface your own ideas, we're going to designate the next 5 or 10 minutes to folks talking about ideas that they came up with. So yeah, Meryl, it looks like you're first.
Thank you. So it was Natasha, JR, and Suzanne who met, and it just so happened that Suzanne and JR are both Thousand Oaks, Newberry Park, concerned about Casca. It didn't look like there was a Thousand Oaks planning document in the works. And then I tagged on because I'm in Cam Heights, which is above the city of Camarillo, which is actually county space. But this kind of document looks like it needs to be coordinated with it's best done with the city, especially the tech advisory group kind of thing. So just hoping that this section where the mountain fire, the Woolsey fire, all the different fires, the Camarillo Springs fire have all gone through is basically surrounded on the Thousand Oaks, Casca, Santa Rosa Valley side, leading into neighborhoods.
Yeah, totally hear you there. I believe actually that we might have had, I don't want to put them on the spot. I think we saw somebody from Thousand Oaks planning uh, in participation here today. And so that's something that we're certainly continuing to discuss, I think, at the executive level of our org, and definitely recognize the need for it. And I believe the city is putting significant efforts into their planning side already. I'm not sure if there's a CWPP actively being authored there, but I know it's something that is priority for them and coming down the pipe hopefully soon. So we can definitely keep folks in our Firewise communities updated as we hear more from that, both for Thousand Oaks, but Camarillo Heights and that area of the county. I couldn't agree more. Needs our attention. So thank you. Katina, sorry, I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
I'm from the Golden Oaks community. We're a fire safe community that's been involved in the program right from the beginning. Very proud of our progress here. The first year we were in the program, we were able to have our interface with the Ojai Land Conservancy clean off the slope that's behind our community. A lot of us are rated in our insurance by our closeness to that slope. The other two people in my group, Adela Trainer and Kevin Schropper, if I'm saying that right. I'm sorry, I didn't write down the name of your community. If you could pop in and say it. That we, both our communities are on an interface with the Land Conservancy property. And what we boiled it down to was we need to have some type of consistency with keeping the interface between the conservance areas and our communities clean of fuels. Ours was done 8 years ago. It has not been done since. So, that's a long time. That's a lot of fuel that can grow up back up in that time. So maybe Adela could jump in and please name your community. I didn't write it down. But I think what we came to was the suggestion is that there's some type of a plan for these land conservancies to consistently clean their interface areas to the 100-foot requirement.
Yeah, and just to confirm, sorry, you mentioned it's Ojai Valley Land Conservancy in your
Ojai
backyard?
Valley Land Conservancy is ours, and
Yeah.
Adela Trainer's community, I'm
Right.
sorry, I
We're the
forget the
Clear
name.
Point.
Clear
We're Clear
Point.
Point in
Clear Point.
Ventura.
And so
that
they're a different, they're part of a different conservancy.
Ventura Land Trust, I believe.
The
Yeah.
Land Trust, yeah.
Yeah. Good to know. Yeah, we are actually working with Ventura Land Trust on some of their CWPP projects right now, Adela. So, sorry, Katina, I know it's not as relevant to your work, but we do have good
No, it is.
we have good communication with Ojai Valley Land Conservancy, and that's something that we can definitely surface to them as well. So, thank you.
Yeah, I just to make a note, I just got my renewal notice for my insurance, and that is the relationship to a slope is one of the things they look for when they decide to say yay or nay, whether they approve you for insurance renewal or what rate they're going to give you.
Mhm.
And they rank that way higher than my being a fire safe community.
Yeah, hear you.
I'd also
Thank
just
you.
add to that too, if I may, Abby.
Yeah.
For anybody who has like any fuels projects that you're kind of interested in having in your community, it's not a guarantee that we can obviously always do any sort of fuels project, but I'd recommend emailing me with photos of the fuel area and aerial imagery. There's a mapping tutorial on our YouTube page on how to map it, but an aerial imagery of what the fuels project is, who owns the land ideally, and like what you're hoping to get out of that project. And I can elevate that to our whole staff.
Oh,
So
that's fantastic.
there. Now, again, not a guarantee that we can do anything, but at the very least, it'll be on our radar, and I can share with the whole team, and we can start discussing different types of projects that we can do for these areas. But it's good for me to know as a Firewise coordinator what community areas we need to focus on.
Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you, Natasha. Ben and Nancy, you've had your hand up.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Yes, okay.
Yep.
So we met with Deborah, who is from Somas. We're from Ondolando in Ventura. And mostly we talked about how Somas can get to be a Firewise neighborhood, which is, typical. But we did get around to the task, and coincidentally, we're both interested in Barrancas on the CWPP thing. And we've been at this for 3 years, and the Barranca is sort of albatross hung around our neck. It's a big threat to our neighborhood, and we can do very little about it because of multiple jurisdictions. Now Clearpoint is part of Firewise, and that'll help a little because now we're both Firewise neighborhoods on the sides of this Barranca. But I think it's a perfect project for a group like the CWPP to highlight and take action because it's going to take more than one neighborhood or even two. It's a great big project, and all the components that go into the CWPP might make something like that happen. And we're not the only Barranca. There's lots of them, and they're all pretty much the same thing, I think.
Yeah. Thank you for surfacing that. Yeah, that's something that we can definitely reflect in the city's CWPP, and we've received a lot of feedback to that effect. So certainly important that we do so. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Anyone else have ideas that they would like to surface? You're also more than welcome to email me, any of your ideas or feedback too. Let me drop my email in the chat really quick. If there aren't, I just wanted to open up the last few minutes of this meeting for question and answer related to, either CWPPs, Firewise community organizing, anything from this workshop. We're happy to kind of take these last few minutes for a bit more of an open forum. So anybody that has comments, please feel free.
I'm just going to share a few of the comments on the chat just so that we can get to those real quickly, Evie. And I think most folks were just wondering about their own personal CWPPs. So for that, there's a link in the chat, venturafiresafe.org/CWPP/. You can click your city, and that will show what CWPPs there are for your city. And then I believe someone mentioned, I think you already answered this question. We noticed that Thousand Oaks was not on the existing CWPP listed, and wondering if there was anything in the works. Do you want to just have another quick answer to that real quick?
I don't want to promise anything because my visibility to the ongoing work at NTO is low. But I will say that there's been discussions, and I know that it's something that's being considered in Thousand Oaks. They do a lot of other wildfire planning as well in conjunction with county fire. So it's not from a lack of planning or I guess advanced preparation. So I just wanted to stress that they do a lot, but in that sense, I think that a CWPP is probably being considered for some time in the next few years. If we're a part of that, we'll definitely let you know as soon as possible. And if we get more information, even in the interim, we'll distribute that to local Firewise communities as well. Sorry that that's not a super detailed or great answer. I just don't want to overpromise ongoing work. And the city of Thousand Oaks obviously has its own government that is doing a lot currently already. So
that was a great answer. Yeah, nice. And then I seen the question said, I'm looking for someone to present about evacuation planning in Simi Valley. This will be part of our Ready, Set, Go event in May. Any suggestions on a presenter? I added a couple of things like reaching out to the emergency manager for in your Office of Emergency Services and reaching out to CERT. But just want to know if you want to add anything to that, Evie.
No, I think that's the perfect answer. Ventura County Office of Emergency Services is responsible for evacuation planning and action. They are pretty particular about what they're telling folks to do or not do. And so when it comes to evacuation guidance, outside of any city police department, the city of Ventura has its own evacuation plan. But if you're in unincorporated or county land, then the Office of Emergency Services has pretty clear guidance, and we don't want to overstep and provide anything in addition to that.
I don't see any other questions, so anybody else can unmute and ask questions or raise your hand feature.
I just saw, folks were looking for the Oak Park and Ojai Valley CWPPs, which are on our website that we linked, but also there are fire safe councils that we are partnered with in both of those areas. Oak Park, we work with super closely, and same with the Ojai Valley Fire Safe Council. So they have their own websites that I would encourage you to check out as well. If you just Google Ojai Fire Safe, same with Oak Park Fire Safe. Oak Park is currently updating their website to include a bunch of new mapping products that are related to their CWPP. So while that document is a couple years old, their website is being renovated, for lack of a better term, as we speak. And there's a bunch of new resources there that I'd encourage local folks to check out as well. But with that, it looks like we're at time. I'll let you all go a minute early today, but I really want to thank you all for your participation. I really appreciate you not only listening to my long presentation, but also coming with your ideas and an open mind to this on a Friday afternoon, no less. So I hope you all stay cool. Have a great weekend. Thank you again. And please reach out to me if you have questions. Thank you all.
Thanks, Evie.
Take care.